Hello and welcome to episode 87 of HardcoreGaming101.net's top 47,858 games of all time podcast, where we objectively, definitively, and scientifically rank the games you nominate. My name is Xerxes, and I died again.
That's been why he hasn't been on the podcast lately.
Yeah, it keeps happening. The death thing. I thought I had a deal worked out, but you know what? He sucks at Battleship.
What makes you sweat? Is it passion? Or could it just be heat? What about not knowing if your very next breath will be your last? What about all three? Tomb Raider from IDOS Interactive.
Okay, my panelists today are...
I'm Bobinator.
TheGunheart.
And I'm Kyle.
And on this podcast, we have 3 rules. Rule 1, all rankings are final, official, and scientifically accurate. Rule 2, you can nominate one game at a time via 5-star review on iTunes or Stitcher. We've stopped accepting nominations via Twitter for the foreseeable future. Rule 3, you can nominate games that have already been nominated, just don't nominate games we've already ranked. Check out for yourself the big master list. It has all the information on the games we've ranked, the games that people have nominated, and so on and so forth. It's at bit.ly/47kgames. bit.ly/47kgames? bit.ly/47kgames. The next game we're talking about is Tomb Raider. Perhaps you've heard of it. It was nominated by Pipsy on iTunes. It was developed by Core Design and published by IDOS, or IDOS. Is it IDOS or IDOS?
Isn't it EDOS?
For the PlayStation, the original, the genuine article. Earliest release date territory is, as best we know, October 25th, 1996 in Europe.
So we don't get any jackasses immediately cutting in. It was actually released for the Saturn first.
But we're going to rank the PS1 version because...
Well, I played the PC one.
So did I.
I think we all played different versions.
We need to get into that, but we'll do that later.
Yeah, so Tomb Raider. We better sum up Tomb Raider. Someone do it.
So Tomb Raider, as far as I can tell, is about a lady who robs graves in the most extravagant way possible. There's dinosaurs, as I recall. Mm-hmm. She has creepily, conical, pointy breasts.
There's about 20 polygons between them.
Tastefully proportioned polygons.
I actually like her proportions in this, by the way. It's a cartoony feel to fit the realistic but not too realistic style of the game.
There's kind of a Jessica Rabbit quality to her, yeah. It's...
Oh, by the way, she shoots mutants in the face.
Is this the one with dinosaurs? Yeah, this is the one with dinosaurs, right?
You go down a little sort of weird open area. It's got foliage and stuff. And then the T-Rex pops out. He's like, how you doing? And then he eats you. It's a great moment.
So, for anyone unfamiliar with the game, Tomb Raider is basically a 3D version of Prince of Persia and Flashback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it was roughly concurrent with, Mario 64, wasn't it?
It was 2.5, 3 months later.
I think it came out before.
No, it was 2.5, 3 months after.
Okay.
I already looked this one up.
I think Jumping Flash is the one that's kind of famous for coming out.
Yeah, Jumping Flash is a whole other game. Tomb Raider is not a response to Mario 64, but I would say it's the closest thing to a sort of, because this is a British game, it's kind of like the closest thing to a Western version of Mario 64 in that you have Mario 64 defined 3D cartoon platforming for ages, and Tomb Raider was sort of but if you want to do something a bit more realistic, a bit more, with gravity and that sort of thing, Tomb Raider was that half of it. And it was spectacular.
Yeah, it's basically the Prince of Persia to Mario 64 Super Mario Bros.
I would say Mario 64 is the better game, but I'd say Tomb Raider might be the better example of 3D.
You're going to have to explain that one a little bit why.
Yeah, I can't just throw this out there.
I mean, I think this is something we can get into when we rank it, but we should probably talk a little bit more about what's special about this game.
There's a lot, actually. It's surprisingly special.
It's not like Tomb Raider gets a bad rap or anything these days.
It kind of does.
Well, I mean, Tomb Raider is overshadowed by Tomb Raider, aka Lara Croft. Lara Croft is in it, and she's this whole character deity in the pantheon of gaming. But the game itself is really, really fantastic. You can get rid of Lara and replace her with a ball that grabs onto ledges and stuff. It doesn't matter. The game is fantastically well put together in a way that Honestly, I was expecting this game to be really aged and really clunky. It's 1996. It's a 3D platformer. I thought it was going to be pretty awful. And I was like, wow, this plays great.
Yeah, it still works pretty well. Although, were you playing the PlayStation or you were...
I was playing the PC version because that lets you save anywhere, and that's really important.
Yeah, if you're playing this for the first time, you might really want to go for the PC version, get it from GOG, get it from Steam, wherever, because playing the PlayStation version is basically hard mode.
Instead of being able to save anywhere, you have save points, and even worse, these save points are one use only. Once you use them, they vanish forever.
You can save between stages too, right?
Yes, you can.
Basically, I mean, we'll probably rank mostly the PC version. It's kind of the definitive of the Tomb Raider releases. The PC version does have one weakness. The music is not as interesting. They cut some of it out to fit the discs or something, but you can patch that in readily. It doesn't really matter. I kind of like the bare bone sounds, but...
It's a trade-off, actually. The PlayStation version has context-sensitive music, while the PC versions have ambient noises.
And the Saturn version is mostly the PlayStation version. Anyone listening along, it is slightly... the frame rate is not as good, and there's a couple of bugs. But other than that, it's basically the same game.
And you have to have a functioning Saturn.
Yeah, PC version is a lot better, because the PlayStation 1 laser is not great either, so you really should just play the PC version. It runs perfectly.
One thing I do have to say, that kind of a hot take here, is that I think this is basically the game that made the cinematic platformer genre really accessible. Like Prince of Persia, Flashback, all of those, you would always die in one hit, basically. Pretty much anything could kill you almost instantly. Whereas Lara is a lot tougher, and the combat is much easier since you have the whole auto-target mechanic.
Right. I mean, that's a huge thing, and we'll get into that in just a second. But I do want to say, like, yeah, I mean, it's a cinematic platformer in a way, but it's also, like, they have to make it easier like that because you will make a lot of mistakes, especially when the game came out, because most people weren't used to playing, like, a third-person platformer.
And it's really, really cool because this is a third-person platformer. We got to remember, because this contextualizes it, there was no analog sticks. This game is designed for digital inputs, and that's wild that you're in this 3D environment. So the whole game is basically on a grid. The entire level design is on a grid, more or less. They kind of disguise it with some organic shapes and, as I said, foliage and that sort of plants and stuff to kind of make it not look it. But there's a lot of grids, and you kind of leap in a way that kind of corresponds to grids. But Lara herself kind of can be curved in midair here and there. You can kind of unrealistically push Lara in certain directions, which...
There's a little bit of, like, yes, Super Mario physics to it, yeah.
Which is a really nice touch. It's almost invisible.
It's realistic without getting in the way of fun, which is important.
Basically, Lara plays more like a cinematic action hero than just a regular person.
And to that end, you can press a button to draw your guns and press a button to put them away, which is the coolest thing. I love that. I mean, there's reasons you need to do that.
It's like a karateka type touch, you know, like you can get in a stance and you can get out of...
You hear like bats, or you see a bear running at you and you're just like, oh crap, and then you whip out your guns and you're just like bang, 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 while running backwards, and then you do backflips while shooting. And this is before The Matrix made that cool, so I guess it's kind of John Woo at the moment.
I think the combat is probably like the weakest part of this game, because to not get hit by things, it takes like a lot of really fast, sudden movements. And that's something this game doesn't really do as well, is really twitchy movement.
Well, that's why your life bar is kind of, that sort of fluid, like fairly lengthy. Like you get hit and you lose a chunk, and you've got quite a substantial amount of health pickups spread out across the game, which you can find in places that you're going to go through and in secrets, because it's Tomb Raiding, so obviously there are secrets all over the place to reward you for poking around.
And those health packs, making things even more forgiving, are used on demand. You don't use them the moment you pick them up, thankfully. You've got a full-fledged inventory system.
I gotta say, like, hats off to the societies and cultures that were like, we're going to bury our people here, but we're going to do it like several kilometers underground. Some of the burial party might die, but the good news is that you're already down there. So it's like, and then we're going to be like bringing down some treasures.
I've got this, I don't know what it says, Magnum ammunition. No idea what it is, but I'm just going to spread it out all over the place. It's climbed up a rock wall straight up to drop. What is this? Med pack? Don't know. It's bandages. It's gamey. It's
very forward thinking. Yeah, very forward thinking. I mean, yeah, it's gamey in the ways that it needs to be. And I love love that we made gamey into an adjective in the show long ago, and so everybody's used to it by now. But I stand by it because I mean, gamey is to an adjective. It doesn't like describe squirrel meat. It's just like so like a gamey Gamerson type, you know, design stuff. That's like it doesn't make literal sense, but it's there because it makes the game more fun. And the game would be crappier if it tried to be more realistic.
I feel like that's really the key to this one. Like, pretty much every choice in this game is like, is this fun or just realistic? And if it's just realistic, they threw it out.
So they're first like, this ass, is it realistic or is it just fun? Like, what do we do with it? You're going to be staring at it for a long time. And they're like, let's just go with fun instead of realistic.
I think fun is the only reason you have a character like wears booty shorts for like Peru.
Like, I really want to defend Lara as a character because she's pretty strong in terms of what she does. She smack talks everyone in the opening cutscene. She's like, forget you. I don't need to deal with this crap. And they're like, hey, it's exciting. She's like, all right, I'll go, but only because I want to.
I would say Lara is a good character. I mean, yeah, she is sexualized. Can't get around that. But look, Cal's right. She's strong and capable. She's not subservient to anybody. She doesn't have like a romantic interest to slow her down. She does everything by herself, and she's never in distress or anything.
She does things on her terms, and it's nice and refreshing to see that. She's not being pushed around. And anytime someone tries to get the better of her, she basically shoots them in the face and then says, what do you want with me?
I'm going through your pockets. I mean, the thing about Lara Croft is, like, number one is probably, like, if you go through, like, the iconic video game characters, like, she's one of the more recent additions. But my question about it is, like, what about her makes her iconic? Because I don't really think it's her personality or, like, the stuff she does.
Did you sort of push like recent additions, and this game is 21 and a half years old?
I don't think there's been a lot of like iconic game characters since then. Like, I mean, when you think about it,
it's tough because, you know, games are obviously, there's a lot more of them, so
they're just different. They have different goals. It's like you're not making, like, you can have a series like Grand Theft Auto sells like billions and gajillions of copies, but
who are the characters? I don't know. There's an angry guy. I remember there's an angry guy. Okay, so
every game is has a different cast of characters.
If we dissect Lara, I mean, it's clearly her visual works. I mean, the booty shorts we laugh about, but, you know, her whole design works really well. She's got the practical ponytail. She's she's got guns on the side of her thing. She's got a good color breakup of the skin tones, green top, brown shorts. And, you know, she looks like she's ready to actually do some bouldering or something, you know, like actually climb around. And
should probably have worn pants for this excursion, but yeah, it's fine.
We were talking about the personality. Let's also keep in mind this was back when CG characters were still kind of new-ish, and she was one of the fully voiced ones at the time.
Her voice is surprisingly good.
I mean, they traded heavily on the sex appeal aspect of it, which I want to say, like, Lara Croft is a sexually charged character, but also, like, it's not that that's wrong in and of itself. It's just, like, there are other things about the character that they do that sort of allow for it.
And if sex appeal was the only thing the character had going for them, then I think the cover of Elder Scrolls Arena would have probably been more remembered.
Yeah, that's something that she definitely has longevity in her character, and it is because this game was really great, and then they made 2 very strong sequels to this game, and then they made some other games that are also good, and then they rebooted the series, and we're not going to really talk about the reboot in this.
Yeah, I mean, like, I want to say, like, also we talked about as Bob described them, the booty shorts, which I think is like the perfect explanation for the physical parameters of those shorts. But like the thing about it is, like, there's a design aspect to it that's not just about like how do we make this character sexier. It's like also, like, if she wasn't wearing shorts, it wouldn't look as good, not for just like color kind of layout level, because it would be like a long like brown streak on the bottom.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you've ever looked at mountain climbers, which is what she does a lot of, they're not wearing like usually long pants. They're often wearing shorts. Like, that's what they wear.
I'm not talking about realistically. I'm just talking about like design wise. Like, the reason why Mario has a mustache is because it breaks up his face, right? Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was saying before. She's got a nice color. So let's talk a little bit. I want to talk about some of the neat things that this game does before we get too off the rails here.
I will say at first you could do this game again with better controls. In fact, they did Tomb Raider Anniversary, which is a very good game on its own, but I kind of like the controls because something about it, I feel like the big challenge in this game more than anything is you go into a room and you have to figure out the safest, best way to get to where you need to be. and you have to really plan out your movements and know what you're going to do and when. And I kind of like that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a real war cry from modern auto platforming where it's just like hold a button and the character will claim it for you without any real input from you.
That's what makes it a cinematic platformer, right? Is there's like a deliberateness, a measuredness to the movement that even though there's like some weird, physics changes to it, it still is like the gameplay is based around like I know what's going to happen as soon as I jump. And I have to be prepared for, I have to think about this a second before I do it. It's not all Twitch gameplay.
It's consistent always.
I'm not going to get into this for too long, but games like Uncharted, they really dumb it down. I mean, it's a lot of it is just running forward and hitting the button every so often, and there's not really a lot of thought to it, and I kind of miss this genre.
With something like Uncharted, and it takes me a lot of effort to get into that kind of game, because in Uncharted, there's points where it's like, you have to jump, you have to like grapple to the next thing, so you press a button, and Drake does it, and I'm like, okay, but then the next thing is twice as far away, and you press a button, and he grapples to it, and I'm just like, huh? What is the consistency here? Whereas, of course, it's to do with it looks cool. Whereas in this game, all the layout is like, well, weirdly, they built their temples in a way that specifically allows Lara to jump in the same way all the time. But you don't think about that, really. You don't worry about that. You go, all right, well, I got to use my running jump, and I got to use my climbing up, and then I got a running jump here. And then it starts to get a little bit wilder when you have to push things around, or you have to dodge obstacles, or there's like more fantasy elements. The game goes completely off the rails towards the end. If you want to look at that or play through the game, it gets really insane in Atlantis, but it's really cool. And I love the controls in this game because this game is one of the first games to have a proper context-sensitive button. Lara can do so many things when you hit the context-sensitive button. Sometimes it grapples, she's got a button and she'll like mount small walls. You can't walk over them, but if you press it, she just climbs up it. You don't have to do anything else. You're near like a tall thing, you press it, she'll leap up. And I know that kind of contradicts what I just said, but it's consistently always works that way at the same height.
Now, admittedly, I do think one issue I do have, given its age, is the camera. It's one of those cases where it'll rotate around the character to avoid getting stuck in walls, and it tends to do this when you really need to line up a jump that's on a very small platform, or when you're fighting, you end up with your back to the wall and can no longer see what you're shooting at.
I would kind of counter that in some ways, because there are a few things, and I actually like the camera in this, but firstly, the consistency of how the game works means that your timing doesn't change. Forward is always forward for Lara. It doesn't matter if the camera goes bananas on you. If you're pressing forward, Lara is straight ahead. She will always go forward because it's a tank controls kind of game, which is helpful when the camera can't decide what it wants to do. But I like that when the auto targeting is going off, the camera will try and position itself with Lara still on the screen and the enemy that you're shooting at. It tries to, interpolate between those two. And if you release the fire button, the camera delocks, and if you press it again, she'll aim at something else. And she can shoot two enemies at once, and then the camera goes a bit crazy. But it's got a really cool thing like that. But my favorite bit, other than there's a lot of custom camera angles, so that the game, there's a lot of effort put into the camera, even if it's not perfect. But my favorite bit is you have the ledge grapple button, which is super important in this game and one of my favorite things. And I think it's kind of an innovation. Unlike your old cinematic platformers, when you jump, Lara does not automatically grab onto a ledge. If you're just leaping through the air, she'll just fall. She'll just hit a wall and fall.
I'm pretty sure it works like in Prince of Persia too, anyway.
The 3D one or the original? Because I think you
the original.
I think the original you do grapple the ledges if you cling them, but I could be wrong. But my main thing here is that when you press that button, the camera rotates to the side of Lara, and you actually see her either just barely grab that ledge, or you see her just barely miss it and plummet to her death. And that's a really thoughtful, like in like Cliffhanger or some sort of like climbing movie or whatever, where you just, there's the moment where the character's like, am I gonna make it? And you actually get that brief moment when you're like, oh, come on. And then you see her fall or not fall. And it's like, wow, it's thoughtful, because they didn't have to do any of that. The camera could have just stayed behind you, and you could have just seen Lara fall. But nope, you get a little camera cut.
There's a lot of thought that goes into this game and a lot of craft that gets lost because of how old and primitive it is. But you got to remember, like, when this game was being developed, these problems were not solved yet. So in a lot of cases, they solved the problems in ways that even Nintendo themselves would copy, like with like the lock-on targeting and stuff like that. Anyway, it's time to rank this thing.
First off, I like this a lot more in Flashback, so it has to go above that.
I'd say it's also more influential than Flashback, which was more of a cold hit for its cutscenes than anything.
I want to hear where Xerxes wants to put this, because he wants to put it high, I think, and I'm interested to see.
I do. Like, I'm not like a huge Tomb Raider fan. In fact, I didn't really like the game a lot when it was new, and I still am not like a huge, like, I'm not like, let's play Tomb Raider. Let's you watch me play Tomb Raider. Yeah, that was more what it was like. But yeah, so like what I would say is though, like all the stuff this game does is kind of amazing when you stop to think about it.
Oh yeah.
And it is still really playable to this day. I'm gonna put it pretty high, so I'm gonna say like right below Pac-Man, right above Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I don't think it necessarily should be that high, but I think that we should start talking it down from that.
You don't really have a whole lot of arguments to talk it down because it is a very influential game.
Here's my bottom suggestion. I don't want to go lower than Metroid. Fair?
I wouldn't go lower than Super Metroid, but you know how I feel about Super Metroid, because I say it every time. No, I think this game it's crazy because Tomb Raider, and when I see what Tomb Raider does, you can compare it to almost any 3D platformer kind of immediately after it for several years, and they don't even scratch on the quality that Tomb Raider is putting out. Tomb Raider is just dominating the 3D platforming in this sort of realistic way for years.
I think this and Resident Evil were pretty much decodifiers for realistic, in quotation marks, action games.
Because if I'm correct, this one, this sort of modern sort of third-person shooting auto-targeting, it's all here. It's this game. It knew what it was doing.
So to properly populate the stage in the theater of the mind here, where I'm putting it is not just below Pac-Man. So it's like below Metal Gear Solid 3, below Doom, below Pac-Man, right above Street Fighter 2 Turbo, right above Rocket Knight Adventures, and right above Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, and above the original Metal Gear Solid, and above the original XCOM. That's the reason why I put it there is mostly because it solves a lot of problems that nobody had even realized were problems yet.
And it does it without a second analog stick. You don't have a second stick, and this game's like, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I wish more games would do that to this day. Like, it's kind of like amazing when you play like something like Super Mario 3D Land or something like that. It's like that gets it, but it also loses some of the 3D-ness of it.
I was actually playing Mario Odyssey just the other day, and it was really weird because sometimes you had to use the right stick to use the camera in that, or to aim. Occasionally, I was like, "Oh, that's weird. I don't like that. I don't want to do that." I think I was controlling the tank, and I was like, "No, this feels wrong. I don't like that in my Mario." So it is interesting, and I think more games could learn from that sort of example of Tomb Raider. I'm not sure if I would put it above Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I think that might be a little high, because I think that fighting games were kind of born out of that moment, and I don't think that 3D games entirely were born out of Tomb Raider.
Maybe right above Rocket Knight Adventures? I could live with that.
Yeah, between Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo and Rocket Knight Adventures seems reasonable. This is like the innovators section, basically.
I'll also say that this one, the other Tomb Raiders are good, but they added more stuff to keep the game interesting, and this one doesn't feel like it needed it. It does everything it needed to do almost perfectly, and it was like, whereas the other ones is vehicles and more enemies that shoot at you, and it's like, I don't need that. This is the good one. This is the best one, maybe. I don't know, maybe not, but I think it would be. I'm happy for it to go at number 9, I think. I don't actually want to push it any lower, and also, because I mentioned this earlier, this will be one of our first British games that we're just going to say, you know what, Britain, you know what, England, there you go. Like, you deserve this. You earned this position. We have crapped all over so many British classics, so many that we haven't put very high. And this one, it goes the distance.
You're welcome, Britain. Now make better games.
That's not fair or accurate. It would just be silly to not recognize. Like, there is an obsessiveness that they don't get enough credit for. Like, an absolute, like, obsession with, not necessarily with detail, but I would say, like, with design of, like we're going to pick these things and we're going to solve these problems. We're going to get this right.
Tomb Raider is this glorious example of where that design methodology just came together and all of it, and they got to put lots of time into it, because this game was like 1.5 years or 2 years in development, and they put it all together, and it was just, they got it right. It worked so well. You're like, that's what they were doing. That's what they were doing all along. I get it now. Good work.
And on top of it, creating like one of the very few like iconic game characters from, that era. Like, it's just,
Lara's a real good character. I mean, you can put her in a lot of stuff and it works. Like Tomb Raider Go, that's a really good game that has like nothing to do with the game we're discussing, but it's still good. You should probably still play it.
So everybody's okay with right below Street Fighter 2 Turbo?
Yes.
Sure.
Tomb Raiders aren't it? 100%.
So that's where Tomb Raider goes. Right, that would be, at this point, that would make it number 9. Right below Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, right above Rocket Knight Adventures.